Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. We've had Vanessa join us, which we're really looking forward to, really excited about this one. Um, Today we're looking at moving PE lessons home, where I'll be weighing up physical education and physical activity, getting the consensus through some polls. So we will be sharing some polls through Zoom on this one. So nice and quick click answers so we can get some ideas from yourselves, get a bit more of a feeling for what you guys are experiencing, and hopefully share some great ideas along the way with each other. So with that one, we want to also share some resources today. So myself and Vanessa will be going through the presentation. There will be a moment where Vanessa comes away from the presentation to show you some great examples that you guys can make some notes of. We want you to be involved as much as possible, so please do participate in the polls when they ping up, and throughout the whole webinar, we'll have a Q&A section at the end, but throughout the whole webinar, if you want to ask any questions, please put them in the chat. While Vanessa is presenting, I'll be monitoring the chat, and if there's something that I feel would be great to answer there and then I'll put it to Vanessa. But don't worry, we won't miss any questions. We will come to them at the end of the webinar as well. I don't like to interrupt Vanessa's flow when she's in the flow of things, right in the zone. So I want to keep her going through all the great content for you. So just to introduce, my name's Dan Hayes, and like I said, we're joined by Vanessa King today, and I'll do introductions in a moment, but first I wanted to share why we've put this webinar together for you. So there's a crisis that we face now, and there's a crisis that we've got the very real prospect of facing once we've finally beaten COVID, or come past COVID and come back to some form of normality. The crisis I refer to is the long-lasting impact on children's fitness, competency, and overall health and well-being, given what they've had to go through over the past 12 months. Teachers are having to plan for children in class and then amend everything that they do to ensure it's suitable for those learning at home as well. They also have to be supporting parents who are homeschooling their children, parents who a lot of the time are also working full-time from home and can't give the level of knowledge and support with the expertise that a teacher has. And this is the case across the board, across the whole curriculum. The area that's providing just as much challenge, if not the most challenging area, based on what our schools are telling us, is actually PE, physical education. It's key for children's development, as we all know, their physical and mental well-being, and the successful implementation of a powerful physical curriculum has immensely positive impact across the whole school, which is being massively disrupted at the moment. So some common questions we're being asked and seeing in the primary PE community are, should I be doing fitness sessions? Do I need to take my lessons and make them as structured as they should be if the children were in school? Is the focus actually more physical activity? Do I need to be focusing on mindfulness and well-being? So hopefully today, myself and Vanessa, mainly Vanessa, will hopefully be answering a lot of these questions. And like I said, if you do have questions pop up, please feel free to throw them into the chat, and we'll try and answer them all throughout the webinar. Like I said, the most of them we will answer in the Q&A section at the end, just to make sure we go through the content for everyone first, but we will be answering the questions. So like I said, my name's Dan Hayes, and with the expert help and guidance from our guest presenter Vanessa today, I hope we can help answer all of these questions for you. Just for reference, I'm the development executive at Aspire. I've worked for the company for around 8 years, and I've worked in the sector itself for over 11 years now, from delivering on the ground physical education, as well as physically active learning programs in schools, to supporting schools utilising different funding, such as the apprenticeship levy, the sports premium, and also creating the West Midlands PE and School Sport Conference, and lately building and developing the Aspire Ed on-demand CPD platform, along with my team here at Aspire. So my goal and our goal really is to ensure that the information is out there for schools wherever you are to access as best and freely as possible. I'll pass over to Vanessa to introduce herself, as there's far too much for me to remember about Vanessa's experience, and I won't do her the justice she deserves. So Vanessa, I'll pass over to you to introduce yourself properly.
I feel like you've built me up a little bit too much here, Dan, so I just need to bring everyone down a little bit. So basically, I've been working as a primary school teacher for 15 years. I've worked across both in this country and internationally. I took some time to do a MA Ed part-time whilst teaching, which was a bit of a crazy decision at the time, but from that, I went on to be a PE consultant. I've been a PE consultant in Hampshire for the last 7 years, and that's taken on a number of projects such as doing a little bit of consultancy work with Energize Me, writing some reports for the DFE, most recently being asked by AFP to produce some work for Oak National, and I get a number of organisations asking me to do webinars and write content for them. So really broad variety of experience, but all focused on my passion, which is children's physical development and through PE, physical activity and school sport. So I think that's about all I want to say, Dan.
No, that's absolutely fine. Like I said, I wanted to leave it to you so you can put the best information out there about yourself. Just quickly before we do start, something that we're launching, and it's completely free. It's a tool for yourself, which is the Primary School PE Scorecard. Something we just want to share with you quickly. You're getting this exclusive because it is being launched today as of this webinar. I will be pasting the link to this in the chat, and that's a completely free baselining tool. It basically helps you baseline where you're at with PE, school sport and physical activity in line with the DFE's 5 key indicators. It takes 5 minutes. There's 40 quickfire questions and you get an immediate report. So it's yes, no and don't know questions, all aligned to the 5 key indicators. Like I said, only 5 minutes to complete it. It'll then produce that immediate report for you to show how your PE, school sport, physical activities stack up against the indicators based on your answers. And like I said, this is a baseline tool that gives you the immediate data information you need as subject leads and school leads to identify your strengths, to identify where you need to make some adjustments, and also receive guidance and information on how to do this, how to make those changes, giving you clearer direction moving forwards. There'll be more on this later, but for now, I hope you got a nice warm drink or a glass of water or something to keep you going. And I'll pass you back over to Vanessa to delve into our topic today.
Okay, so the first question I want you to think about is whether you are delivering physical education or physical activity at the moment. Dan's going to run a poll, so if you could just click one of those options. Whilst you're doing that, if you've already voted, the next question to think about is what do you think is more important at the moment?
Can you see those results there, Vanessa?
Okay, yeah, so as expected, physical activity, you can see, hopefully you can all see the results too. We had 83% responses voting for physical activity and 70% for physical education. So the next question I asked is, what do you think is the most important at the moment? You're absolutely right. Physical activity is probably the most important thing right now. Physical education is defined in 2 ways. It's firstly learning to move, so this is skill acquisition, and it's also moving to learn, which is basically where we use cross-curricular links, so possibly maths and English. So we're using movement as our pedagogy to help deliver the learning. And physical education is really important. It's normally delivered, as you know, within schools. And today I'm going to help you to understand how you can push to have a little bit more physical education at home, as opposed to the physical activity, which tends to be more fitness and skill based. Although both are important, we could arguably say that at the moment, in a pandemic with COVID, that physical activity is probably the most important point, that we're keeping children active, that they're meeting the chief medical officer's requirements, which is the children aged 3-4 preschool, sort of early years starting school, 3 hours of physical activity a day is the recommended level for our health benefits. And for children older than that, at primary level, we're looking at 1 hour a day. So as long as we are delivering physical activity, then we're hitting the health requirements. The physical education, which is the learning how to move and learning to move, this is important for setting the milestones for children to be able to engage in a love of learning for the rest of their life and maintain those activity levels. But it happens over a much broader period. And so although we're taking time out from school at the moment, it's the overall gaining of experience throughout their whole education that will determine that quality of physical education. So we don't need to panic about trying to fit in everything all the time. But like I said, today's webinar is to try and help you fill the gaps and try and push a little bit more physical education at home. So Dan's just moved on to the next slide, and we're going to get one more poll now. Which areas of PE are you mostly delivering at the moment? So FMS stands for Fundamental Movement Skills. If you can list more than one, it's multiple choice.
A couple of people have put in yoga. So there's two answers, both of them yoga, that's good. Forest school sessions as well. And it would be interesting to get your thoughts on forest school as well, Vanessa, because I know that's something that we get asked about quite a lot, and how beneficial people think that is towards what they should be doing. Is it something they should be doing or not? That's something I've definitely been asked. Yoga, meditation, forest school. Lots of forest school and yoga coming into the chat at the moment. They seem to be the on topic subjects to be going through. Okay, I'm going to stop the poll there as well in a second.
Brilliant. Okay, so the good thing is it's actually really broad, so we can see that all areas are being covered to a degree. But again, as expected, the fitness element is the highest element, and that links with the physical activity. And that's largely because a lot of the resources that have been produced to support home learning do tend to have this fitness focus, which is great, and it's a really great starting point, but we need to be making sure now that we're having a broad and balanced curriculum as much as possible, especially in the lead up to children coming back to school again. Thanks, Dan.
No worries.
One thing I didn't mention in the introduction, and I'm really not going to go through it at 4:30 on a Thursday, because I'm sure that you won't want to hear too much about it, but I'm also doing a doctorate at the moment. I'm in my final year, and one of the foci of my doctorate is the social ecological model. So in a real snapshot, because of the constraints of time, this is based on the premise that education, all individuals are unique, we know this, and education is about human development. Every single child that we are teaching remotely at home will have completely different constraints upon their learning experiences. And so as facilitators of learning, we need to be mindful of those different experiences that the children have and try to accommodate a breadth in our offer so that we are facilitating learning that's appropriate for all those children. So the microsystem, the most inner layer, this refers to the child's most immediate environment. So this is their parents or carers that they're living with, any siblings they have in their environment. And that means the attitudes that those particular individuals have towards physical education and physical activity. But also it's the environment. So whether they live in a high-rise flat or if they are lucky to have a huge garden, but all of those immediate influences upon their environment that creates their individual world. The next layer is the mesosystem, and this is the part that you can really influence. So the mesosystem refers to the bidirectional relationship. A bidirectional relationship meaning it can go both ways between the children at home and you as the school or as the coach. So as you influence them by providing them with high quality experiences, they also will influence you by the responses that you get from them and by what their needs are. So if you're aware of if you're a teacher and you're aware of your individual children in your class, you're going to adapt your program according to those needs. So that's what the mesosystem refers to. The exosystem is to do with the wider community influence. So this can be something like the demographic. For example, if the children live near the sea, very lucky, they might, especially with our lockdown, you know, we're restricted to where we can go at the moment, but you can bring in that outdoor learning from living by the sea. Alternatively, if they live in the forest or out in the countryside, again, there's a big, rich, natural environment for you to be able to draw upon for your learning experiences. On the flip side, if children live in a block of flats or if they live in an area of high crime, for example, then your capacity to be able to draw on that local environment is possibly limited at times. And so all of these factors are called constraints upon a child's ability to learn. The last one is the macro system, which is the wider political influence. So at the moment, we're massively guided by politics because we're told exactly what we can and can't do. This is a feature of our life all of the time, and it affects the quality of what we're told what we should be delivering, both in school. We're told about where we can and can't do. We're told about how much physical activity we can do. So at the moment, that influence is huge, but it is always there in the background. And whilst I'm on that note, before I forget, I noticed on AFP, AFP stands for the Association for Physical Education, if you haven't heard of them. I noticed this morning that they posted, the DFE are asking all schools from tomorrow to report on their websites publicly what they're doing in terms of remote learning. So there's a new legislation in place from tomorrow. if you have school leaders, I'm sure they're already aware of this, but there may well be a necessity shortly to share part of what you're doing in terms of physical education. So it's quite good timing to have this webinar today. But anyway, suffice to say, so education is a process of human development, and it has very important social and cultural dimensions. And like I say, this affects the quality of the experiences for all the children. So with that in mind, we are going to talk about a lot of different constraints. So here we go. I'm not going to read them all through. I'll just have you have a chance to scan through yourself, thinking about the constraints for home learning. And then we will focus on how we can overcome these. So I'll just give you a little time to look through that. Okay, so looking at the how can we overcome these barriers, there are many more, I'm sure. That's just a few of them, but one idea that I've noticed a lot of schools are starting to jump on board is resource packs. So a lot of the home learning resources that I've seen being posted around on various Facebook groups and on the internet talk about trying to use resources that the children already have at home, like socks, for example, and possibly saucepans for tennis rackets. And this is great. This is a good way to start to make sure it's an inclusive offer. However, we've also got to think about the fact that we are developing attitudes towards learning, and children, we're wanting them to feel engaged and inspired and enthusiastic about what they're doing at home, because they will remember this period, as I'm sure we all will, for the rest of our lives, and they'll remember what they did. So although it's great to have those sorts of options for children, maybe it might also be a good idea, if we know that there are particular children in deprived circumstances, asking the school to use pupil premium money to fund resource packs. So small packs of just bean bags or tennis balls. Tennis balls are great, aren't they? They're really diverse, can be used in a number of ways. So basic equipment, maybe even skipping ropes or blow up balls. You know, you could possibly reach out to the community and get sponsorship. I've done that for a number of schools in the past, where they want to help. People want to help. You've just got to reach out and ask them. So resource packs for children in deprived circumstances will allow you to be able to improve the quality of what you're delivering, and it starts to feel a little bit more like physical education rather than just practicing skills with resources in the home. The next important thing is, so as we go through the resources, which I'm going to share with you in a moment, it's really important to have an understanding that the adults need to understand, as well as the children, that about the risk assessment, how they're moving in their environment, to make sure that they keep themselves safe. So with everything that you recommend, and we will be talking about insurance and liability later in the lesson, it's important to have that conversation with particularly older children towards the upper primary school who might not have their adults around when they're learning. If you're doing live lessons, you need to have that understanding of the risk awareness. The next thing is not being too prescriptive. So we're talking about, there's a lot of on-screen resources, and some of those I'm going to be sharing with you, but we need to make sure that we are mixing it up so that we're not just providing lots of video-based resources where children have to follow them, and particularly with fitness, that's happening a lot. We need to give children, especially if they're in a jam-packed curriculum. I've heard various extremes of some schools giving a full curriculum to children to access hour by hour in the upper primary school years, and that physical education time should be that time away from the computer, so that they get that chance to experience the endorphin rush and the de-stressing that physical education brings. Whereas if we're ramming them with a lot more fitness on screen at the same time as a full packed curriculum, we just need to be mindful that we're not oversaturating them with screen time, and that we break up that day. So not being too prescription, giving lots of options is the key. Some off screen, some on screen, and we're going to go through some examples in a moment. Right, so I've got 3 slides for you. Please don't worry about taking notes, because I'm going to come off this screen in a moment. This is just to give you a flavour of some of the ideas, but then we're going to actually go on to the links and show you the content of what it is specifically that I'm talking about. The links will be sent to you following the webinar, so you don't need to make notes at all. Feel free to just chill out, enjoy your hot drink. So I'm just going to be quiet for a bit, let you read through that. Dan, if you could then swap to the next 2 slides, and then we'll come out and look and go through it all.
Not a problem. As Vanessa said, don't worry if I'm going a bit quickly through these, just scan through. Vanessa's going to show you anyway, and we will be sharing the resource links for you.
Ta-da! Can you see what I see, Dan?
I can, yes, I can. I can
Lovely.
see.
Right, okay, so the first one on the list, we started with early years. So children absolutely love stories, don't they? They've got brilliant imaginations. And one of the things that I did with some of my schools is created We're Going on a Bear Hunt is a brilliant story for movement because it's got movement naturally as part of the book. So we green screened some children doing some different movements and put it together to share with the rest of the class. So I'm just going to show you a slight snippet.
We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, grass. Long wavy grass. We can't go.
Right, I won't show you the whole video because otherwise we'll be here. But as you can see, the imagery changes each time as we go through the story. So you're going to get a chance to see some of these links at the end, like we've said. But this is just one idea, but there are so many stories like this, and it's possibly one idea that you can just share with your early years class is just to ask the parents, recommend a book, and if they have the ability to just allow the children to create their own movements, because creativity is a real function of intelligence that we do use to a degree in primary school, but not enough. We've got to realise that these children have brilliant imaginations, and through them having that constructivist approach of creating their own learning, that's more memorable to them, and they say that affects their attitudes towards learning for the rest of their life. So that's what we want to foster. Feel free to use this resource, but it's the idea is that I'm not just giving you this, but also to stimulate your ideas of doing the same thing but with other books. So literacy links is a really good one. The next one is on the list was the maths links. So this is again thinking about that concept of physical education being moving to learn as well as learning to move. So Aspire have got loads of brilliant ideas. I can't go through them all now, but one example is a quiz. So if you can see here, I'll just play you a little bit.
Equals what? What is 8,800 divided by 8? If you think the answer is 800, balance on the spot. If you think the answer is 880, balance.
So I don't know why my screen's so small there. I do apologise, but the key concept with this is the question is posed, and I know you wouldn't necessarily use this one for early years. They'd be wondering what on earth you're going on about, but you can tailor it yourself. I'm sure Dan's got lots of resources for all age groups, but the key point is, rather than them just writing the answers, you can get there's 3 answers you can see showing a completely different movement. So the children on screen can show you their answer through moving, which is a brilliant, way to get activity as part of the curriculum. Here's another one, it's a little bit easier to see. So the question is posed, and then there's 3 different options, and the child selects the option that's the answer. So that way you're bringing that learning alive. So active maths, another brilliant example. Play-Doh disco, we do this a lot in school. Early years, I'll just play a little bit. Pinch, 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 pinch. So there's some core movements, a little bit cheesy music, so you have to forgive me, but you can create your own. There's lots of key movements like splatting and pinching and rolling. So send children home a recipe to make with their parents. They can make their own. Most children will have Play-Doh, I'm sure, but if they haven't, they can easily make it with flour. It's a quite simple recipe, and give them that fine motor example at home. So put some music on, live sessions, or send them home the links. Really great way for fine motor. The research at the moment shows that although at a younger age, in early years age, boys tend to be more active with big gross motor movements, girls tend to be more active with fine motor movements. So we're wanting to cross those over and share, so that girls, we're encouraging more gross motor, but the boys need that fine motor development. The next really good resource is, and a really good thing to do, is skill development. So this is about fundamental movement skills. Fundamental movement skills develop balance, coordination, and agility. They are seen to be the fundamental building blocks for which children go on to then be able to apply them to various different sports activities and physical activities throughout their life. They have to have the fundamentals. It's the basics like hopping, jumping, running, skipping, sidestepping, throwing, all of those sorts of things. So this is PE. This is basically on the Association for Physical Education website. They've got a number of these resources. Ryan Ellis is a really good practitioner. So
ready? Off we go.
One example.
Brilliant. Try that same hand again. Fantastic. And one more time. Okay, fantastic. Now it's our last one. I'm going to throw it up, and I'd like you to use, if possible, both hands at the same time. So both hands together. You ready? Wow, good effort.
Okay, so they're really good guided sessions. Again, you could use a few of them to make up a longer lesson if you wanted to, or just send them home as links. The idea getting that 3 hours active time throughout the day for the early years and at least an hour's physical activity for the primary age children. If it's in small chunks, that's absolutely fine. If they use as brain breaks, brilliant. It is all contributes. The next thing we tend to do for early years is a scavenger hunt. So I'm hoping this will be a little bit bigger for you. Children love this. You can easily have this as a PE lesson. Sorry, it's not bigger, but basically you'll get them in much bigger format when we send the links through. So scavenger hunt, children love this. Send them out. Again, it may well be restricted to children who are in the right demographic area of the community to be able to do this safely, and that will need to be risk assessed. You can't just send them home to everyone, particularly, like I say, high area crime or low socioeconomic demographic, where mid busy roads, things like that. All of these risk assessments will need to be taken into account. So be mindful with it. But if you are lucky to live in a rural area, scavenger hunts are great, and this can count as part of their PE. They're making those cross-curricular links, getting a love for the environment, getting the outdoors, all that rich experience of fresh air and connecting with nature is key for sowing those seeds of positivity towards physical activity. The scavenger hunts for early years, brilliant. Oh, here we go. There's a really, really basic one. You can see all the different things they have to find. Something's rough, something smooth, something sticky, etc. So you're developing their literacy and their vocabulary as well. These are also, I also love these. You get some printables where, if you, particularly boys absolutely love Lego, don't they? I've got 2 boys of my own and they can't get away from it. So you can get these printables where they have particular patterns on them. These ones are flowers, but there's also monsters or dinosaurs. So again, we'll send you through the links, or you can link them with different activities. So this one is Halloween, or you get Christmas ones. Over here, the snowman one. We've got Easter coming up, so I'm sure there'll be some Easter ones. And so they're the patterns, and the children have to make the Lego. Again, you may well be thinking, yes, but they might not have Lego. But again, could you then turn that around and think, could we provide some children with Lego packs, for example? I'm sure the pupil premium money is not being used in the same way at the moment as it is when schools are fully functional. So definitely a conversation to have with SLT. That fine motor, particularly for boys and early years and early key stage 1, very, very important for those skills. I was just talking about the Lego packs, and I was saying to mention to your SLT, fine motor development is really, really key for boys, particularly all age groups, but boys particularly at those early years in key stage 1. So they have these patterns. You can send them home and they make up the patterns, but also you can see there's maths links as well at the bottom. You can talk about, basic counting and number recognition and things like that. The next thing, so on the PE suite, I will be sending you through a lot of resources. I've got lots of little drills that children can do. This is more skilled based. It's going to do with fundamental movement skills. So I won't go through all of them. There's about 100 of them, different activities that you can send home for children to try. There's lots and lots. So this one's to do with telling the time. So they've got cross-curricular links. There's different setups they can set up at home. and the children move in those various different directions, which is developing their lateral movement, which is key for those fundamental building blocks. The next thing, so I think we've crossed over to sort of key stage 1/2 now. So again, those packs that I was talking about with the fundamental movement skills, they will have lots of resources for key stage 2 in them. One thing I also have done a number of times with my schools is run a dance-a-thon. So this, we produced this video, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And the idea is that you send home the video to the children and get them to learn the dance in their own environment. You're going to have completely different policies with regard to different schools. Where I've worked in advised a number of schools, I realised that what happens in one school is completely different to what happens in the other. Even if you've got an infant and a junior across the playground, what they do is completely different. But so you will have to find out about children recording themselves and sending their videos in. But what we have done before is, if this is allowed, the children record themselves having learnt the dance and then send in a montage. So I'll show you what the dance looks like.
Here I go. Woo! I go. Watch out. Wow, me up. I'm to show you what I'm working with. Well, Alibaba, he had them 40 feet. Shahrazad, he had 1,000 tails. But master.
So the idea being that then the children will film themselves. Oops, I've lost my... This was another one, so it's not the same dance. This was a different one. The children film themselves doing the dance, and then you put it all together. So here is an example of one that we run previously.
As you are, but I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us, for we are glorious. When the sharpest words want to cut me down, I'm gonna send the blood, gonna drown them out. I am brave, I am bruised, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me, look out, 'cause here I come.
Okay, so my experience of running these are the children absolutely love them. They love the learning of the dance, but actually feeling part of something. And I think at the moment where children are potentially quite feeling quite disconnected at the moment, where they're all in their own homes, the idea of running a dance-a-thon for your school or your community, whatever your setting is, and you collecting those videos and putting them together to share might help bring them together. So you're connecting all of those children, even though they're learning remotely. And my experience of that is it's always a positive thing. The children love it, and they love seeing themselves as part of that video montage, which can be shared with parents or the rest of the school. Next one, so I've been recently involved in a different project. I'm trying to find the actual link on this one. Here we go. So there's some free resources that you can deliver. I think there were some questions about mindfulness. So I've got some breathing exercises here that you can try. These are great. The only thing to mention about yoga is that I've had some experience, just pause that a minute to talk to you first, of yoga. Traditional yoga is rooted in Hinduism. And so sometimes with Church of England or Catholic schools, you have to just check your policy with diocese as well, your local diocese, to see whether yoga is allowed. Even though yoga, this isn't necessarily, the resources I'm sharing with you aren't necessarily that original, really, yoga that was developed right in the Hindu times. It's evolved quite a lot since then, because the children tend to do the yoga that's based around stories, and it's a lot different in context. Some schools still, even though that's the case, if they're Church of England or Catholic, they won't allow it. So you do need to check that. But anyway, fingers crossed you are allowed to. I'm just going to show you some of the...
And
this.
Crossing your legs, spine straight, spread one hand, and then with your finger, breathe into your thumb, breathe out to the base, breathe into your forefinger, breathe out to the base, breathe into the middle finger, breathe out to the base. Breathe into the forefinger, breathe out to the base. Breathe into the little finger, breathe out to the base. Breathe back to the top of the little.
Okay, so there's 10 of those. I'm sure you've probably heard of cosmic yoga. There's a lot of stories on cosmic yoga, but there's some additional ones here. So if you've run through those already, we've been in lockdown for quite a long time. There's 5 yoga sessions here for children aged 4 to 8, covering a number of contexts: beach yoga, festival, Chinese New Year. And there's also some for Key Stage 2, some here. So we're in the film, Bonfire Night, Football Yoga, Superhero Shine Your Lights. There's lots of different, we've tried to cover topics like football yoga, which is really good for engaging boys and girls who like football as well. So lots there.
Vanessa, really quickly, sorry, just I've had Becky just put in the chat for us, because she's got to shoot to pick her little ones up herself in a second. She's just asked, are the Aspire and FP resources free? Obviously, I can answer the Aspire ones are completely free. Just wanted to check on the FP ones. The FP videos you went through, are they openly accessible, or do they have to be an FP member to access those?
Everything I'm sharing with you is free.
Brilliant. Just to let everyone know,
Thank you.
that's not a problem. Just to let everyone know, we've just got a couple more minutes, and then we will get onto the Q&A section. So any questions you do have, start putting them in the chat now. When we get to the Q&A in a couple of minutes, we will fire through them with Vanessa for you.
Trying to speed me up then. Right, so also we talked about sports specific skills. So you might have a group of children, you might be lucky, you might live in an affluent area who do have equipment at home, and if that's the case, I have got a range of resources where you can teach some different skills to them. Here's another example. It's in a user-friendly way. You can watch this on phones, screens, iPads, all sorts. Just gives you basic skills for you to be able to do. In terms of when I was saying about a balance between sharing screen and not sharing screen, so one strategy that I've seen some teachers use is the use of music. So they basically will show the video, this is what I want you to do, and when the music's on, you're going to go and practice, and when the music stops, you come back to the screen. So that way they're not just stood staring at the screen all the time, but they're able to go off and know that they can just concentrate on their skill development, and they know as soon as they hear the music stop, they come back. So that's a good strategy to minimize that screen time throughout the lesson. The other one, I'm losing my tabs here. So the other one that I wanted to talk to you about is Join the Movement. So this is This Girl Can. They've got some really good resources, particularly if you've got mums at home with their children. There's some videos of children and mums dancing together to things like bare necessities. So really good website to check, This Girl Can, and Join the Movement. Right, Willpower. This is another one. So if you've got children who are wheelchair based, Willpower is your website. If I show you there. So workouts for young people. There's a brilliant instructor called Ella, and you'll see.
And we need to start it again using the other arm.
Yep.
So if you're ready, we're going to go 1, 2.
So great inclusive resources there. I can't go through this without mentioning Oak Academy. I don't know about you, but I always get really embarrassed when I see myself on the screen. So I haven't actually watched these, but there are some resources that have just been produced by Oak Academy, which have got Key Stage 1 gymnastics, and they are 30 minutes long, so it's a full lesson. There's Key Stage 2 lower Key Stage 2 gymnastics and upper Key Stage 2 gymnastics being released just after half term. There's also athletics, fundamental movement skills, and all sorts. So I won't show it to you now, but the great thing about Oak Academy, I don't know if you've heard about it lately, but they're trying to do something about the digital situation with data. And so they've managed to team up with all of the key mobile providers to allow children to be able to take part in any Oak lessons without it using any data on their phone, which is a great way to help children who possibly might be in a bit of a deprived area. Another great thing for Key Stage 2, I've done this before. So this, I'm gonna show you this video. I'm not asking you to ask your children to backflip in any way, but I'll show you the video first and then I'll talk about what I would do with this. So this is actually a marketing video, but you can use that concept. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos where a child or an adult has a piece of equipment and they play with it, they show their skills, but then they throw it off screen and then the next child grabs it and does something. So I thought, particularly for upper key stage 2, to sort of engage them in something fun, and you could give them the challenge and show your talent. What is it that you can do? So they don't necessarily have to have the same piece of equipment, whatever equipment they've got, but if they're brilliant at basketball dribbling, or they can do loads of keepy uppies, or they can juggle, whatever it is, you could ask them to create a video of them showing their talent, and then again, obviously check with SLT about policy, but a lot of the schools that I work with allow it. They send in the videos and then you create a montage and put it together. It's another just really good way, again, all these children learning remotely, to connect them in some kind of community, and a great fun thing to engage in as well.
Vanessa, just on time, I really don't like rushing people on these, but just on time, just because I'm aware of the time. Is it right if we just go through one more and then we can move back? Because I know that the liability is a question that we've had as well, so it'd be great to make sure we fit the time in for the liability question.
I can finish there. What I will say to people is, I'm assuming you're going to give them like my email address or Twitter account or something like that. So if you want, I've got loads of ideas like this. We'll send you lots of links. But if you need anything specifically, then feel free to get in touch, and I will definitely be able to help you with a lot more.
Never mind. So, like I said, I know there's some great ideas that Vanessa shared, and just to reiterate, we will be sharing a document with all of those links on after later on, so you will have access to all of those. The key thing for today was for us to identify what the focus is. Should it be physical education? Should it be physical activity? What should we actually be doing? There's a key question that someone's put in the chat box, which I'll come to you on in a second, Vanessa, if that's okay, when we get to the Q&A. But liability has actually come up in a couple of conversations I've had with schools, so I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to fit it in, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure. So liability is a question that I've been asked previously. So when you are sharing resources, the company that produces them will have to have the correct insurance in place to ensure that they are covered in the case of a claim. However, as a school, and you potentially as a representative of that school, or if you're a coach or representative of your company, you also will carry, basically the company that produces the resources, whoever that is, they have to have the correct insurance in place in the instance of a claim. But also you as a representative of your school, so if you're a teacher or if you're a coach as a representative of your coaching company, you are also liable for QAing that resource. So you are liable for ensuring that, one, it's appropriate for the age group and that it's safe, and two, that the children have an understanding. When I was talking about earlier about risk assessing their environment, that adult consent. So when we were producing the resources for Oak Academy, you'll notice that at the beginning, there's a disclaimer slide, and there's also a bit where you run through the safety points. We were told by HMI and all sorts that it was essential that we had that in, and that we had to run through that before we went on to the lesson, just to make sure that the adults, the parents or carers understood that they had a responsibility for risk assessing and making sure that environment was safe. So it is important to QA all your resources, and it is important to have those discussions with your head teachers to ensure that the correct communication is in place. So I hope that I've been true to what I aimed to deliver, which is to say that this applies to the children. This also applies to you. I'm sure you will have your own challenges as well in what you have to provide. So we're all trying to do our best, and it's really important that we're mindful of that this is unprecedented circumstances. We've never faced anything like this before, and so we all have to be mindful of giving ourselves a break, and not aiming to be perfect all of the time. It's impossible. But the key takeaway I wanted to for us to consider is, from the child's point of view, they're all in completely different circumstances, and we need to make sure that we're delivering breadth and that we're giving a range of options with lots of flexibility so that we can engage all of those children in different ways. And the other key thing to say is about a PLAC recovery curriculum. So very shortly, we don't know yet when the DFE are going to announce schools are going to return, but when they do, AFPE will be running, that's the Association for Physical Education, will be running some webinars. One of them is from a motivational speaker. Another one is from HMI, which will give you the Ofsted sort of take on what's going to happen when schools return. And the third one is about a recovery curriculum. I will be running that webinar. We haven't got a date for you yet, but I'm sure that Dan will post out as soon as we get that date, we can post that out to you too. So be mindful that, as far as I'm aware, that's free as well. So after we're running a recovery curriculum, which will be thinking about the transition from how do we get from remote learning back to getting children back to school, and what is it that we need to be focusing on. So keep your eyes posted for that as well.
Brilliant. And so we're going to jump into the Q&A in just 1 second. Just want to let you guys know with regards to, for joining us today, it's brought to you by Aspire Ed, and because you guys are here, you get a 10% discount for any courses. So that's the on-demand CPD platform. It's a high quality CPD. It's accessible whenever and wherever and however you like. There's no time constraints, no deadlines, no set sessions. There's no cover costs that you have to take if someone goes off on a course. But just for joining us here, there's a 10% discount code. That's WEB10 in their capital. So please just make a note of that. Have a little look at the aspire-ed.co.uk website to see if there's a course on there at the moment about embedding a powerful physical curriculum. That course is made up of over 7 hours worth of video broken down into bite-sized videos. Got 25 downloadable resources, examples, template documents and tasks. And coming soon, there's some courses that should be here by the summer term, which are SEND in PE, gymnastics and EYFS focused courses created by key industry experts. And I know Vanessa's working with us on Aspire course content as well. So that's not created by Aspire, that's created by experts such as Vanessa, Crichton Casborn and other industry experts on the Aspire Ed website. The reason we can create these free webinars is we have a sponsor, and that is the PE Hub. They are a planning and assessment platform. So because they are our sponsor, I always like to let everyone know why we can do these free things for you. And if you use the code AspirePod, because they sponsor our podcasts as well as our webinars, if you need a planning and assessment platform, have a little look on there, use that code and you get a 10% discount there for yourselves as well. I mentioned about the scorecard earlier on. Like I said, we're launching that, and I'm going to drop, when we're doing the Q&A and Vanessa's answering a question, I'm going to drop the link to the scorecard into the chat. And I would recommend, like I said, it takes just 5 minutes. I'd recommend you do that now while things are fresh, and it spits out an immediate report. So you can see on the screen there, I know it's a zoomed out image, but that's an overview of the immediate report that you'll get and receive straight after the 5 minutes. It'll give you an overall score percentage based on your answers for the 40 quickfire questions, along with a percentage score for each of the 5 key indicators from the DFE. So it'll give you an immediate overview of how your school stacks up against the key indicators. And as you can see from the example image here, there are a couple of areas where this school is performing brilliantly, others that require some attention. I think on that one, key indicator 2 might be the focus for them. It's the lowest. So they know where to focus their time and attention to further develop what they're doing in their school. They'll also receive guidance. You will receive information on how to go about developing these areas from industry bodies such as AFPE, the Association for PE, YST, the DFE, and it all comes as part of this report straight after the 5 minute questions that you answer. So you also receive an in-depth PDF report, which will give you much further information. And you also have access to the free ebook soon, which is The Power of the Physical, which is a 10-step guide to implementing a powerful physical curriculum in your school. And if you did want more in-depth support and hands-on support, again, completely free, once you've completed the scorecard, you can book a free PE health check with myself and our other advisors, so we can have a quick 15-minute video call, find out your needs, talk about your scorecard and how to move forward. So again, all of that is completely free. So I wanted to share that with you because we didn't want to sell anything today. We just wanted to make sure you guys are aware of what the key focus is with regards to homeschooling and what's out there to help you. So baselining with this PE scorecard, which I'll put the link in the chat for in a second.
If you've got Twitter and you go onto AFPE Twitter page, it's on there. I'm not sure what the link is on the website yet, but I will find it for you and definitely put it on there.
Brilliant. Okay. So yeah, I would advise following Vanessa because of the position that she's in, all the work that she does, and the links that she has with AFP and all the webinars and so on, and the font of knowledge she is and does have. I would recommend following her on Twitter because she's always sharing this information. It's a great place to find information is Vanessa's Twitter. Also, make sure you are linked with the Association for Physical Education as well. Being pretty much the national governing body for PE, they are the ones that have got the direct link to government. They are the ones that share the information as soon as possible, as soon as it is available. So please do afp.co.uk, afp.co.uk, or follow them on Twitter, any social platform. They're always putting things out there. And yeah, we will grab that link and share it with you all as well. So before we have to lose Vanessa, has anyone got any key questions? So just to recap, I'll just leave that on the screen, but just to recap for yourselves, the key that we're looking at, and I think is the consensus, is physical activity. It is a case of looking at the fundamental movement skills that Vanessa said and all the resources that she went through. Has anyone got any burning questions that you may want to ask Vanessa live now? And if you do, please could you just drop it into the chat, and then I'll ask you to open up your microphone, or just say yes please me in the chat. I'll ask you to open up your microphone and you can have a direct conversation with Vanessa really quickly and hopefully answer any of your questions. Has anyone got any concerns about the liability, the insurance side of things, where to find support there? Or Vanessa, have you got any suggestions on where people could find support with regards to actually what is stipulated with regards to liability, and if they need to have a certain, you mentioned about QA side of things, do they need to have a document in place, or what would you recommend?
So I would have a conversation with your SLT to make sure that the parents understands that they are responsible for risk assessing the environment in which the children are having activity, particularly for early years to Key Stage 1. That's obviously essential, but even for Key Stage 2 as well. The OAK liability, if you go onto OAK Academy and you look at the first page, so you go onto the gymnastics resource, just press lesson 1, you'll see a disclaimer slide. You'll also, after the disclaimer slide, you will see a keeping safe in this lesson slide. So if you go on there, you will find the key information that was given, that was agreed by AFP, Youth Sport Trust and OAK Academy for use of those resources. So if I were you, I'd use that as a little bit of guidance for what you should be sending home. But in terms of liability, that's a discussion if you're a coaching company. You need to have that discussion with your insurance company to make sure you have the right liability. I would go to AFP with any questions regarding that. They have brilliant business support. They also support schools, so they'll be able to answer your questions directly with your exact requirements.
Fantastic. Okay, so if there are any other questions coming in, I have got one last poll. We always like to gather feedback on these. We want to make sure that we're getting the right information out to you, that we're being as helpful as possible. So I've got a feedback poll now that I'm going to launch. It's just got a couple of questions in there with how useful you found this. And the second question is, how likely would it be that you'd recommend an Aspire Ed webinar to a friend or colleague, with 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest? So I'm just going to launch that poll now. So if you could all put a bit of feedback in there for us. And again, if you've got any quick questions while we've got Vanessa, because we've only got a couple of minutes left before we do lose her, please do fire them in. So I'll just give you a minute to answer the poll there and fire any other questions in that you've got. And just while you're doing that one, like I said, the primary school PE scorecard, I've put the link in the chat for you. Please do copy and paste that link and go and have a go on that scorecard. Like I say, it'll take just 5 minutes of your time. So it's primary school PE scorecard.co.uk, nice and simple. And like I said, it's 40 quickfire questions. They're yes, no, don't know. And the unique algorithm that we've got working in the background will, like I said, spit out that immediate report. All the context and the information on the scorecard, the report afterwards is changeable based on your answers. So it is unique to yourselves. And then you will receive that further in-depth PDF, which does actually have links in the PDF as well. So there's between 3 and 5 links, or maybe 3 and 6 links against each key indicator of how you could improve each key indicator as well. So if one's slightly lagging behind the others, go on your PDF report, find those links and look for some solutions, as well as the guidance as well that's come in. So we've got 91% of people voted. I won't share the results and the feedback because that's more for us to take away, but I really appreciate that. There's lots of high scores on there as well, which is really good. And that's absolutely fantastic. If you did want to share any other feedback or have anything else that you wanted to put to us, on what further things you'd like to hear about. I'm just putting my email address into the chat now for you. dan.hayes@spa-sports.co.uk. So if you did think that there was something else that you wanted to hear today, or if you think there's another focus of the webinar that you'd really benefit from, then please email that across to me. And it may be that we've got one planned in the pipelines. It may be that actually if there's a consensus, then we change what we've got planned in the pipelines and bring you the information that you're looking for. I suppose all that's left to say is thank you very much for spending your time with us. Vanessa's just put her Twitter in there. I think that's come straight to me, so I'll just forward that onto everyone. This is Vanessa's Twitter handle, so if you want to follow Vanessa on Twitter and get the latest information, I'll just ping that into the chat for you there. Again, as I was saying, thank you very much for your time, everyone. Really appreciate you spending the time with us, and thank you very much to Vanessa as well for sharing her insights. Some of the further in-depth side of things that she's going through with regards to her doctorate at the moment is beyond me. So it's great to have Vanessa on with us to go in depth and share her font of knowledge, as it were. And if you do want more information, our contact details are in the chat. Again, thank you very, very much for spending your time with us. We hope we've answered as many questions as possible. Like I said, the feedback's fantastic, so thank you for answering those polls. And hope you guys have a great evening. Hope you've taken some gems away, and you will be receiving that document with all those links in soon over the next couple of days. So keep an eye out on your inbox for that. And yeah, hopefully see you again at the next webinar. So thank you very much, Vanessa.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Have a great evening.